Watch out.
Watch out, watch out.
It was October 22nd in the year 1797 that the first parachute jump of note is made by André Jacques Garnerin from a hydrogen balloon 3,200 feet above Paris. Leonardo da Vinci conceived the idea of the parachute in his writings, and Frenchman Louis Sebastian Lenormand fashioned a kind of parachute out of two umbrellas and jumped from a tree in 1783. But André Jacques Garnerin was the first to design and test parachutes capable of slowing a man's fall from a high altitude. Garnerin first conceived of the possibility of using air resistance to slow an individual's fall from a high altitude while a prisoner during the French Revolution. Although he never employed a parachute to escape from the high ramparts of the Hungarian prison where he spent 3 years, Garnerin never lost interest in the concept of the parachute. In 1797, he completed his first parachute, a canopy 23 feet in diameter and attached to a basket with suspension lines. On October 22nd in 1797, Garnerin attached the parachute to a hydrogen balloon and ascended to an altitude of 3,200 feet. He then clambered into the basket and severed the parachute from the balloon. As he failed to include an air vent at the top of the prototype, Garnerin oscillated wildly in his descent, but he landed shaken but unhurt half a mile from the balloon's takeoff site. In 1799, Garnerin's wife, Jean Genevieve, became the first female parachutist. In 1802, Garnerin made a spectacular jump from 8,000 feet during an exhibition in England. He continued his eternity in a balloon accident in 1823 while preparing to test a new parachute. On October 22nd in the year 1965, our nation's 36th president, Lyndon B. Johnson, signs the Highway Beautification Act, which attempts to limit billboards and other forms of outdoor advertising, as well as junkyards and other unsightly roadside messes along America's interstate highways. The act also encouraged scenic enhancement by funding local efforts to clean up the landscape and green spaces on either side of the roadways. This bill will enrich our spirits and restore a small measure of our national greatness, Johnson said at the bill's signing ceremony. Beauty belongs to all the people. And so long as I am president, what has been divinely given to nature will not be taken recklessly away by man. The Highway Beautification Act was actually the pet project of the First Lady, Lady Bird Johnson. Beauty, she believed, had real social utility. Cleaning up city parks, getting rid of ugly advertisements, planting flowers, and screening junkyards from view, she thought would make the nation a better place not only to look at, but to live. And I agree with her. Aesthetic beauty makes a human feel better. You know, if we look good, we actually feel good. She was totally right. The subject of beautification is like a tangled skein of wool, she wrote in her diary. All the threads are interwoven. Recreation and pollution and mental health and the crime rate and rapid transit and highway beautification and the war on poverty and parks. Everything leads to something else. Many urban activists, along with a number of other people who were beginning to think seriously about the consequences of the nation's poor environmental stewardship, supported Ms. Johnson's efforts. Business groups, polluters, and advertisers, on the other hand, were not so thrilled. Lobbyists for the Outdoor Advertising Association of America and their Republican allies managed to water down the highway beautification bill significantly. Companies that had to take down their billboards were compensated handsomely by the government. Still, Johnson's bill was important. It declared that nature, even just the strips of nature along our nation's roadsides, was fragile and worth preserving, an idea that still holds great power today. It was October 22nd in the year 1975 that Air Force Sergeant Leonard Maltovich, a decorated veteran of the Vietnam War, is given a general discharge by the Air Force after publicly declaring his homosexuality. Maltovich, who appeared in his Air Force uniform on the cover of Time magazine above the headline, "I am a homosexual," was challenging the ban against homosexuals in our U.S. military. In 1979, after winning a much-publicized case against the Air Force, his discharge was upgraded to honorable. In 1988, Maltovich continued his eternity at the age of 44 from complications from the AIDS disease. He was buried with full military honors at the Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C. His tombstone reads, quote, "A gay Vietnam veteran. When I was in the military, they gave me a medal for killing 2 men and a discharge for loving one," unquote. The spiritual endeavor to love, accept, and support your fellow human, even though you don't understand them, will always be held as righteousness. The spiritual endeavor to condescend, hate, or disparage your fellow human just because you don't understand them will always be held as evil. The information documented and divulged on this audio file can be verified on history.com.